In higher ed, we're all looking for big wins, but reducing a 75% application abandonment rate and achieving a 90% conversion rate, that's next level transformation. Michael Bettersworth, CMO at Texas State Technical College, shares how they achieved this by streamlining the application process with Element 451.
Our Element journey began out of a necessity. We were switching to a new SIS, and the application process was going to pose some real usability issues for us. We felt that application was going to hamper our enrollment. So we began quickly to evaluate different CRMs, different applications. So for context on that, our conversion rate with the prior application had about 75% abandonment of people clicking apply to submit. And the first weeks after going live with Element, we saw an 80% conversion, and that's now up to 90. So improving the usability of that application on the front end process has had a significant advance in our intake.
When technology works for students, it works for you. Visit element451.com to see how simplifying the application process with artificial intelligence will lead to significant results for your institution.
If the most prevalent challenge in our industry is retaining the talent that we have, and that talent's getting burnt out, why aren't we doing everything possible to try and solve that problem?
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of edtech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Well, Seth, I was going to open up this episode with some really fun story about my recent vacation in Florida. You know, I got to see the new baby tiger at Animal Kingdom, and I feel like my life was changed. But the honest reality, and we keep it very real here, I have been so sick this week. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. It's whatever this thing is this winter going around, man, it hit me like a brick wall this week. So I'm just hoping that you're feeling better than I am.
I think I'm a little better, but I'm not much better. I'm sick. I got a cold. Lola's got an ear infection. She's home from school today. So yeah, we're a sick household ourselves. Lauren's sick too. So it is that time of year. It is going around. We were at the doctor's yesterday, and they were saying, it's a February that was as bad as January, and they haven't seen anything like it in 20 years. So it's everywhere. So if you're listening, we hope you are feeling well. And if you're not well, we can hopefully bring you something of a little bit of joy in your earbuds for the next 15 minutes as we tackle another fun topic.
Exactly. I think that for me, the hardest part about being sick is resting. I'm just not good at it. And I was reminded of that this week as I'm trying to push through on my, laptop and slacking the team and all of that. And I'm I just don't know how to take a break sometimes.
I know, right? We push it and we always go too far. I mean, that's just how we tend to be. And it always comes back, the check has to get cashed at some point.
And so, interestingly enough, what caught my eye as I had a little bit of extra time to be reading some of our industry news rags, but the Chronicle dropped a report this week. Higher education is exhausted. And given how sick I've been feeling, I'm I don't know if one led to the other, but Jeff, let's pick this topic for this week. Misery does love company.
It does. But I thought the article was really good. And it was, it was pretty detailed. So if you haven't read the article in the Chronicle, obviously it's going to be in the show notes. But yeah, the article was What's It Like to Work in Higher Ed? Key Findings from Our Survey of Higher Ed's Workforce. And there was a lot to unpack, and I'm excited to talk about it. But also, I think on our side, which is a little less and a little more absent in their article, is like, what can we do about it? And are there opportunities? Because I actually have a fun anecdote to share this week, and we have a lot to unpack about, where I think AI can come in to actually address some of this stuff in a very tactical way.
Yeah. Well, let me share for anyone who hasn't seen this report yet, I want to share some of the stats that really jumped out to me. So I think this is going to set the stage for why burnout in higher ed is reaching this crisis point. Because this is not the first time any listener has contemplated this topic, I'm sure, and certainly not the first time we've talked about higher ed getting burnt out on the podcast. But now we've got some data to back this up and some fresh data. So workload increase is kind of the first category. And in the report, 65% of faculty and staff say that their workload is heavier now than it was 5 years ago, right? So at the height of the pandemic. More than 40% say that they are working significantly more than before. And they point to layoffs, both on the staff and faculty side, as the reason for that increased workload. A lot of higher ed employees picked up the responsibilities from their colleagues who were never replaced. And that high turnover has, despite, constant new initiatives, like certainly all the tech changes and AI that's been happening is one of those things, right? But the high turnover has meant that there's no additional resources to support them. So that's kind of one area.
Yeah.
Another is just the burnout and the mental strain. Faculty in particular are less satisfied with their jobs than they were 5 years ago. And a third of them cite meeting student needs as a major contributor to that stress, kind of acknowledging that student expectations are heightened and are changing. And then the third category is political pressure. And 42% of respondents cited political influence on higher ed as a major stressor. And we're recording this just about 6 days after the release of the Dear Colleague letter on February 14th. And so I think that is a very timely topic right now as well. But one of the reasons why, the burnout in higher ed is reaching this crisis point. So I guess that's like you just said a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
The report uncovered all of these things, but we're here to actually talk about the solutions to some of these challenges because that is not something that the report presented. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. One of the big ones for me was the conversations around burnout. Like, there was interesting things in the survey related even to how respected you feel, your involvement in decision making. One of the conversations that we actually had at Canahoma in the last probably 4 or 5 months was around burnout and even my own limitations as a leader in understanding it. And so just to share with the listeners here, I run a 30-plus person agency, and folks were saying they're feeling burned out. And I was saying I'm tracking hours, and it doesn't look like folks are working more. And it really took some conversations for even me as a leader to understand that burnout is so much more than just time put in. And it's the fact that people were feeling more and more rushed. They were more crunched. They didn't feel like they had the time to do the caliber of the work they know they're capable of. They felt underwater. They felt behind. And so that was a real learning lesson for me. And one of the things that came out of that was us figuring out how do we address burnout? And it's more complicated than just increasing resources. And so one of the things that we've done as a business is we've shifted to really turn towards how can we leverage AI to actually try to alleviate work constraints. And so just last week at the agency, we had a 2-day AI enablement workshop where I actually brought in a practitioner to walk the team through. We had a keynote where we walked through the whole agency, and then we did breakout groups for all of our different service units, right? So we had a creative breakout and a paid breakout and a web or SEO operations. And we got really tactical into what is the work that you're doing and where is the repeatable tasks and how can we leverage AI to ease things up. We just had a team meeting recently and folks were already talking about some of the tools they're leveraging. And it really, I want to be clear, we've not solved anything yet, right? We're a week out of it. But for me, it's actually made me extremely optimistic that if leveraged correctly, AI can have a significant impact on not just the amount of work you do, but the quality of the work, and more importantly, the experience that the team has when they're doing it. Because if we can take those repeatable tasks and free those up and give people more time to be strategic, it allows everybody to elevate. So I'm coming to this conversation today more bullish than I think I've ever been on AI enablement, for what it's worth.
I mean, I think you're right. I think this is, as I was reading through that Chronicle report, the entire time I was like, well, AI can help with that. Yep. AI can help with that. Yep. And I get that there's a learning curve to it and some implementation time. And in a lot of cases, like, you got to make sure your campus is ready for it. And that's a big mindset shift and cultural change. But if the most prevalent challenge in our industry is retaining the talent that we have, and that talent's getting burnt out, why aren't we doing everything possible to try and solve that problem? And we have the tool to do it. And I do believe it's AI. It can reduce workload for people. So automating those administrative tasks, personalizing communication, enhancing student support. One of the faculty members interviewed in the article, Celeste Chamberlain, it's funny. She can't remember how many committees she's on because she's on so many of them. I just had to laugh at that. But she says that she's totally burnt out and struggles to have energy in the classroom. And she loves teaching, but she can't sustain the pace because of all the other things she has to do on top of teaching. And it's that's where AI can be the assistant to step in and significantly reduce the things that she has to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is that AI implementation, at least organically, is much more of a bottom-up implementation than a top-down because leaders are not using it by and large. And so it's very difficult for them to advocate. So even in my case, that's where I had to go out and find an AI implementer, someone who's implemented AI in agencies, because it's I haven't done this. And so I can't help my team. And so, I mean, even just we're already talking about, we have the whole agency is now on the ChatGPT enterprise level. We're all leveraging how we can pull that together. But what also we're starting to do is walk through frameworks and look at where are the repeatable tasks in our workflow and how do we build a short list of the things that we can apply, because AI does not come in and suddenly become fully implemented. It's sort of like onesie twosie at the beginning, and you have to identify, this is a thing I do every week 3 times, and how can I leverage technology to do it better? And we even have to remember that we talk a lot about AI, but there's also just general tech solutions that are super helpful. Even just last week, I had never heard about a tool called Whisper, and Whisper is basically voice to text for computers. And when you install it on your computer, you just push one button and you speak into your microphone, and it immediately translates perfectly into text, and they nail all of the commas and the punctuation. So I don't even write emails anymore. I just sit in my office and talk to myself, and I hit the button and I speak, and suddenly I'm able to plow through emails way faster and way more thoughtfully because I'm using voice rather than text, because it's a voice to text solution. That's not even AI, right? That's just simple text. So it's where are the tools that we can implement, and then where and how are we knowledge sharing? So even within our business, we have an AI Slack channel now where everybody's sharing what they're doing. If they find something interesting, we're encouraging folks to record a Loom. Loom videos are great because they give transcripts, and there's if you have Loom AI, which is an updated version, which we have, you can click and it creates a standard operating procedure automatically. So you can say this is how I'm using this tool, click it, it creates an SOP. You can then share it with everyone else if they want to replicate it. And so that's all been really powerful. And so the reality is no one person's going to come in and solve this. So what we need to do is on a leadership level with AI implementation is become an early adopter, but also just it's our job is facilitation. How are we encouraging the right conversation? So when anybody is finding some way to leverage technology to make their job easier and faster so they can focus on bigger, more strategic work, we're then kind of bottling that information and then disseminating it out across the rest of the organization. That's stuff that leadership can do. And it's just really possible. It's just really, really interesting, the insights that are already coming out.
Think you know ChatGPT? Think again. Unlock advanced features like projects in Canvas at the AI Engage Summit's ChatGPT Secrets session on February 26. You'll be able to implement what you learn immediately. This free virtual event is a must attend. Register now at enrollify.org/engage.
Nice. I love a good Loom video.
Right.
The ability to cut back on some meetings and just be a little more asynchronous with stuff, but fire out.
Okay. I gotta tell you, so in our Slack channel, we have a thing called Kudos where you shout people out. And I shout out 2 people for that exact reason. We had a 30-minute meeting scheduled. They ended up recording me a 7-minute Loom. They're hey, here's what they needed me to review a proposal. And it was a unique proposal, so they wanted some feedback on it. They were just hey, here's what's going on. Walked me through it. I watched it back later on at night after Lola was down at 1.5 speed. I replied to them. We were all in collectively across all of us, maybe 15 minutes across 3 people. And we were about to commit 90 minutes, right? A 30-minute meeting for 3 people. So we went from 90 minutes down to 15 minutes just by leveraging Loom and then doing it all asynchronously. It was amazing. And it's those things compound when you do that more and more often.
So you mentioned Whisper. Another big one for us at Element 451 recently has been Notebook LM, and the ability to kind of synchronize information from a lot of different resources and then kind of go a step farther and get a little more into agentic AI. That's been huge. In fact, and so like this is the like peek behind the curtain. But we, of course, have our AI Engage Summit starts tomorrow. Plug, go register if you're not yet. We actually have a session on Notebook LM. Hey, that's cool. But Aaron Fields, our marketing manager at Enrollify, took the content from Generation AI's 3-part series on agentic AI. Those co-hosts, JC and Artis, are the opening keynote tomorrow. They're going to be talking about agentic AI because we were like, hey, it would make a ton of sense that we would give higher ed something written, like a playbook or something around this topic. Like we have so much content around this. She was able to pull information from a bunch of different places and using Notebook LM far easier, and the output was way better than what ChatGPT would have done with some similar stuff. And she created this really incredible agentic AI playbook all through using Notebook LM. And it took like, I don't want to say like next to no time, but like it compared to a traditional way of creating a guide. I mean, it was a fraction of the time. It is excellent content. And right, like if we think about if you're like a content marketer, I'm like going into the weeds here now, but like if you're a content marketer, like think about how much research you're sitting on from your faculty. Maybe it doesn't have to be podcast interviews. Like just you are sitting on so much content. Like Notebook LM can become the place where it takes that really complicated stuff and translates it into different formats and things that like different audiences will latch onto. Yeah, I'm really excited about that session tomorrow. And that's been like one of our favorite tools lately.
I love that. And that's where I think, as we think about like the topic today, like can AI save higher ed from burnout? Maybe not. Like there are components that was in the article that from the Chronicle that was really great that are way outside of it, political related, internal respect related, decision making, access to broader resources. But can AI like meaningfully impact your burnout as an individual? Like I have never been more bullish that the answer is yes. And I think that's important because we always talk about like, what is our circle of influence? And so if you're listening and you work in higher ed and you're feeling burned out, a lot of the things like politics and broader resources or things, those aren't available to you to decide, right? Those are things that are going to be determined for you. But how you implement AI within your own workflow to ease up your day so you can do the bigger, funner, more creative things, I think is really, really important. I think we are far away from a place where AI is going to have taste. And so I think being like a real creative strategist is more important than ever. Whether you actually work in strategy or work in marketing or enrollment, you're all creative strategists. And the reality is that's needed more than ever. And so to me, it's like, how much of your time are you spending on that? Versus if you did an audit of your time, how much of it is spent in meetings or following up on tasks or doing repeatable things? And that is something that can drive burnout. And so to me, I do think AI can address burnout, and I don't think you need significant buy-in from above. Hopefully you can get, a $20 a month pro account for ChatGPT, maybe a couple other tools approved, but I think you can do a lot for free, to be clear, but if you can get just $100 a month, it's incredible what you can achieve with just a handful of these tools. And I just think it's important because, what's within our sphere of influence, and not all of it is. But in this case, this is an area where we can all have an impact if we just lean in and try to figure out how to apply the tools a little bit more intentionally.
Yeah, I'm concerned that if this burnout just continues unchecked, like the talent pipeline in this industry is at significant risk. And, and I think now we need great leadership in higher ed more than ever.
Yeah. Yep.
It's concerning.
I agree. And it's hard. Presidential turnovers are increasing. So presidents have shorter and shorter tenures. Higher ed CMOs tenures are shorter than ever. There's a lot of movement. And I agree. I think that the fact that even we're still in the industry, I'm going on 20 years now, is something. But a lot of folks have left in that time that I've been here, a lot of really talented folks. And I think in particular, the one positive from that Chronicles survey was how much people felt tied to the mission and how much people felt respected for their role by students. And so I do think the more that we can just try to solve for everything else, to remember why we're here, the students that we serve and the impact that we have. My grandfather always told me education's the great equalizer. I still believe it. I love being a part of organizations that make a positive impact. But it's harder than ever to be there, right? And the burnout is harder than ever. So hopefully this can address a little of it, because I would love to see people stay and continue to be a part of the impacts their institutions are having.
And, folks, no matter where you're at in your own AI journey or your institutions, there is definitely something for you to learn at this AI Engage Summit, which starts tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow being February 25th, if you are listening to this on the day that the episode drops. We've got not only that great playbook that I mentioned, but AI readiness and maturity model that we developed with Jamie Hunt, who hosts another one of the podcasts on Enrollify. We've got 11 sessions that are very practical and hands-on. I mentioned the Notebook LM one, but we've got a couple panels. I'm moderating a student panel to get their perspectives on AI. You're going to hear from some institutions that have already started to see real results because they were early adopters. And the majority of the program focuses on this idea that you can create an AI agent workforce to combat things like burnout, to engage your students in a better, smarter way, to use data in a better, smarter way, right? These big, hairy challenges that we've been facing in this industry. So if you haven't registered yet, you've still got a little bit more time. This is your call, enrollify.org/engage, and it'll take you right to the landing page to register.
Love it.
Cool. Well, Seth, it is always a pleasure, whether we are sick or not.
Right? Exactly. Hopefully we will be feeling better when we see each other again next.
I hope so. You bring some light and freshness to my afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you. That made my day. It's always great seeing you, Mallory.
All right, friends. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.